Hello, guys, welcome to Rex Arthur TV. This is the Rex Arthur Show where we discuss LGBTQ issues with an LGBTQ perspective and an LGBTQ approach and a humanistic approach in an LGBTQ plus planet where we all belong to one or two letters in the 10-letter sexual alphabet LGBTQIAAP. And today we are going on with part 3 of our polar blast in USA and summer solar storm in Australia, and this is going to be climate change and industrialization. And in part 1 and 2 we looked at climate change and its climate change and the reason why the wet extremities because of the climate change. And in part 4, we were looking at the fact that evolution, sun evolved, the earth. This is where evolution can support us, is because we understand the theory of evolution, which is disputed by very many people. Some people question evolution on the basis that they cannot explain why the primates from which we are said to have evolved from are not evolving. And it's a very simple understanding. You have to understand in genetics, we all belong to different. The A1 is the oldest group in genetics, but because it's the oldest group, it is the group from which all. So basically, we are saying because the older the life form becomes, the weaker it becomes. So this is why we should not really fear the sun ever getting hotter, because it is almost 4 billion years. So if anything, we should be fearing the end of the sun, because when the sun disappears, then life on the world will change, in the world will change. So basically, every life form goes through evolution, every life form goes through changes. So there's climate change, there's earth change, there's solar change, there's lunar change. The moon is not the same moon as it was 10,000 years ago. It's as simple as that. However, in my view, like, they just did a very good analysis of Jupiter. Jupiter is a gaseous planet. It's a planet full of gases. So it's not a terrestrial planet. It's not a planet where you can go and step on it. It is gas. And when they went to Jupiter, something very interesting happened on the NASA road. Let's look at Jupiter. Look at what they said. Jupiter is trans. Sorry, we don't make the rules. So Jupiter looks like a bag in an amazing NASA photo that was taken. So let's look at it and read through. It happened last year. You see, Jupiter is a gaseous planet like the other 5 planets, and the colors became pink and white. Now, when we do Jupiter colors, okay, hold on, Jupiter planet colors. They're giving us a motorbike. We're not looking for that. This is the evolution of Jupiter. Images, it reflects many shades of white, red, orange, brown, and yellow. The color of Jupiter changes with storms and wind in the planet's atmosphere. So you see what I'm trying to tell you, change is part of life, part of a life form. So Jupiter, because of the storms, what you need to understand of the video, we have discussed part very well, and then part test carbon emission are what do you call it? They are countries that are more industrialized are more are the highest emitters of carbon. Now today we just want to focus on the history of climate change science, and made in the late 19th century. This is very important, what you need to understand, and this is the meat of this video, that climate change has been happening ever since the world began. That's what you need to understand, number one. Number two, the catalyst of climate change and global warming in our time, in the time of the Homo sapiens, or human beings, for those who don't believe in evolution, is that the catalyst is industrialization, coal energy, the use of coal energy, and the setup of factories is the biggest catalyst to global warming today. And if you can see, the history of the scientific discovery of climate change began in the early 19th century, when ice ages and other natural changes in the paleoclimate were first suspected and natural greenhouse effect first identified. So, what I want you to understand is science is not the creator of changes. Even though we can say science is God, as I said, because science is truth, what you need to understand is when you discover something, it is not that it didn't exist. It existed. At the same time, some things exist after the existence of something that never existed. Like the use of coal was a very new happening, the use of industrial coal. So when industrial coal came up and people are now setting up factories, that is an event that never happened in the world. So it was bound to create new happenings. So what you need to understand about the world, again, another in principle we are getting, a new thing creates new things. Social media is a new platform that has created new economies, new jobs, new ideas, new problems, new challenges, because it is something that has never happened before. And so it is, but the idea of social media has always been in the world. Yes, it's just that its time came right now, and it has come with its new things. So it's a very philosophical, very hard thing to talk about. That's about time. But what I'm trying to tell you is that new things create new things. And so these scientists started studying climate, and then they found out something called the greenhouse effect. And they argued that human emissions of greenhouse gases could change the climate. You see, this is what they realized. And why did this happen? It's because factories were being set up in Europe. Many other theories were brought of climate change, including forces from volcanism to solar variation. And I agree with those. Solar variation can also lead to climate change. As I've told you, solar change, lunar change, ocean change. You know, the ocean's salinity, you know, the level of salt in the ocean changes the ocean. Yes. And when the ocean changes, to changes in the land and the ocean. So many other theories we've discussed that in the 1960s, the warming effect of carbon dioxide gas became increasingly convincing. So you see, they were really convinced that carbon dioxide was leading to global warming. And so now, and then now when computer was being developed, people were able to study climate change even better. So you must understand, science gets better when you have better tools to study situations and phenomenon. Very many now than ever before, because we have the best tools ever so far to determine very many scientific theories. But in the 19th century, they didn't have the tools. They didn't have electricity. They didn't have computers to study nature. But now we are very happy. Glory be to God. Hallelujah. That we are able to study phenomenons thanks to computer science. We are forever grateful to computer science and artificial intelligence helping us understand nature. So what I just wanted to say today has just been said, that the 19th century, the industrialization began in the 16th, 17th century. But the first calculations of human-induced climate change began in 1896. Then they did calculations, but they didn't know. Then they started having increasing concern in the 1950s and the 60s. Then scientists increasingly predict warming in the 70s. Then consensus began to form in the 80s. And then to the present, they now declared there was global warming. Can you see, in a period of 100 years, they were still wondering what is really happening? What is really happening? So the weird thing about all of this climate change is that what you need to understand is that people did not know. But the problem we made, the mistake we made as human beings, we did not arrest the situation early because we didn't have the tools to study that problem. So the problem kept on escalating. As the more the world was industrializing, we were wondering what is happening, and the world was keeping on releasing carbon. Every year carbon was going into the atmosphere. People are asking themselves, but what is really happening? Let's really sit down. So it's until they got the best tools that they got to know what was happening. And you see, even Aristotle discussed climate. Theophrastus, his student. And in the Renaissance, the scholars saw that deforestation and irrigation and grazing altered the lands around the Mediterranean. And Vitruvius wrote climate relation to housing architecture. You see? But the most striking change came in the 18th and 19th century. And then you have more issues, of course, with the theories, paleoclimate change, and how the world was very icy in the century and the 19th century. And they got the Ice Age theory when glaciers covered Europe and much of North America. And then after that is when, because of industrialization, carbon dioxide was going into the air thanks to the factories that were being built, and it now led to global warming and destruction of the atmosphere of the earth. So what I'm trying to tell you is the sadness of what is happening. You also have to be negative sometimes, and the sadness of what is happening is that we may have known that the world was going to have a problem in climate, maybe too late, in the sense that the industrialization started from 1700 till now. We are still industrializing. That's 300 years, and those are how many days? Over 300 times 365. That is about 90,000 days. Is it 90,000 days? Hold on. 30,000. Yeah, 30,000. Yeah. That's roughly 90,000 days of what do you call it? Of climate change, of carbon emission. Very many days. How many hours? Hundreds and thousands of hours of carbon emissions happening in the world. And so we have to understand that there is a lot of work to do to arrest the situation. It's very important because climate change affects, I've told you what part one was dealing with. Change in one system affects change in another system. That's what you need to understand about the world. We are united. Even mental health is connected to climate change. Habits of people are affected by climate change. Yes, that's what you need to understand. Everything. Biological change, physiological health. So that's where we are. And industrialization is a catalyst. It is not the instigator. What I also wanted to try and put out today is it's not industrialization that started climate change. Climate change is part of nature. Rather, industrialization is the catalyst of global warming, hence climate change. It has made the climate change faster, more drastically, and more chaotically. And the only way we can solve it could be to reduce on industrialization in a large way, in a very big way. When we reduce on the industrialization, then the carbon emissions will reduce, and when the carbon emissions will reduce, they will be the climate change will be also reduced. Now, of course, you must understand, if you reduce carbon emissions, you are reducing capitalism because you're reducing industrialization. And therefore, the world economies are going to slow down because we are focusing on conserving the planet. So be prepared for a lot of stagnation in economic growth if we want to save the planet. Of course, America has steered away from that thinking because they believe America is capitalist, and it knows fully well if it does not industrialize more, its economy can collapse. So this is what you need to understand that's happening in the Trump administration when it comes to climate change science. There is a big war, because if they slow down in industrialization, they are slowing down economic growth. That's what's happening in America. That's the battle. And I would tell America, you have to accept the fact that industrialization has catalyzed the dangerous weather patterns we are having. And the only way we can stop it is reduce industrialization. So America should now adopt more of a socialist system of government, whereby you put people on welfare universal basic income so that people do not have to work hard to make money to survive. So that's my advice and my concern about industrialization and climate change. Very good article here on Wikipedia. You can come and read it in depth. But basically, what I wanted to really stress, that industrialization is the catalyst of global warming. It's not the initiator. The world, as long as the world exists, climate change will be forever part of the world system, because life forms go through change. We all evolve because we have life. That's what you have to understand. Even when we die, our matter evolves, because your flesh starts becoming, it decomposes, and then it becomes part of the soil, and then your bones, they are crushed and they become fossil oil. It's because life forms necessarily don't have to have, they just need to have cells. They don't even have to have air. They just need cells. You know, a stone has cells? Yes. A stone has structure. It's not breathing, but it has a solid structure. Yes, it has an atom. A stone has atoms. And so it's a life form that doesn't breathe. But as I'm telling you, solid life forms go through very slow change. Yes, that's why the planet Earth, the 4 terrestrial planets, go through, their evolution is slower than the gaseous planets like Jupiter and Saturn, because those ones are gaseous, so the colors change, the makeup of the gases change, because they are always interacting with each other. So the changes in a gaseous planet are more fast, and no wonder it's like a transgender person. You know, transgenders, they are always changing. They change their minds every time. It's because they are gaseous compared to solid persons. Yeah, so there we go. Enjoy. Let's keep on reading about climate change. I'm enjoying every minute of it, even though sadly the climate extremities, the weather extremities are too extreme, like what's happening in Chicago, minus 40 degrees Celsius, and then in Sudan, 42 degrees Celsius of heat, sunlight. Unbelievable. To extremities, oscillating like a with bipolar. Okay, thank you guys. See you later. Let's keep on having the LGBT concern for climate change.